Hari Om. Today we will proceed in Bhagavad Gita from chapter 13, verse number 24. In the previous verse, Sri Krishna gave us the solution on how a spiritual seeker, while engaged in action, can attain the ultimate state of moksha by going through the path of Jnana Yoga and being established in the highest truth. What is that truth? Knowing the difference between Purusha, the consciousness, and Prakriti, matter. Until knowledge of Purusha and Prakriti does not arise in the seeker, and until the seeker does not accept that he is the Purusha and not the Prakriti, moksha is not possible. However, since all seekers have different mindsets, so how can different seekers come to this path or prepare their mind to receive this Jnana Yoga knowledge? So from verses 24, today's verses until 34, Krishna talks about two things. Number one, what is the sadhana or disciplines to be followed by different seekers to gain this jnanam or knowledge? And number two, what is the phalam or the result upon attaining this spiritual knowledge? So we have gone through this actually. So this is basically a repetition of what we have learned in the previous chapters. So in the scriptures, it is given that the first stage, everyone has to start with Karma Yoga Sadhana. Second stage is Upasana Yoga Sadhana. Third stage is Sravana Yoga Sadhana. Fourth stage is Mananam Yoga. And fifth and final stage is Nididhyasanam Yoga. Of these 5 stages, the first 2 stages are for the preparation of the mind, known as Jnana Yogyata Prapti. Jnana means knowledge, Yogyata means fitness, Prapti means getting. Gaining fitness of mind to attain knowledge. The third one, Shravanam, is Jnana Prapti. That is, by listening we attain this knowledge. The fourth and fifth steps are known as Jnana Nishta Prapti, which means this knowledge that we heard we must assimilate into our daily lives, and it includes meditation also. So therefore there are different levels, and all of us start with Karma Yoga, but some who are already advanced seekers, then they have to choose the next level of sadhana also. So here, question is, where should I start from? It will depend on which level you're at. And this again depends on your Purva Janma. That means what we have brought from our past birth. Since we are all at different levels, so we have to self-assess and then proceed from where we are. In chapter 6, verses 41 to 44, Krishna explained that all the sadhanas we do in each lifetime, they are never wasted, but are carried forward, and depending on the intensity of the sadhana in the past lives, a person in this present life will then proceed from that stage in life. So we can see the sages and saints like Ramana Maharishi, Adi Sankaracharya, Ramakrishna Paramahansa, Swami Vivekananda, already at a very young age, they shunned the materialistic life and they pursued the path of sannyasa or the path of a renunciation. As due to their intense sadhana in the past lives, they had already attained enough purity of mind, preparedness of the mind to proceed or to start. They don't have to go back, so they continue from that journey. So Krishna says we have to evaluate ourselves and choose which is the right sadhana for us. So let us see what Krishna gives us the choices of the different types of sadhana, starting in verse 24. So he said Kechid meaning some others, meaning those who are already born in this life, but because of their past intense sadhana, in this life they've achieved a very high spiritual level. So they've already purified their mind through karma yoga, through upasana yoga. So they don't need to go through jnana yoga. They don't require guru, as they have already attained this knowledge by their own purity of mind. So what do they require? The Lord says here, some people just require dhyanena, which means meditation. So they will just exclusively devote all their sadhanas to meditation, as they've already acquired the knowledge also in their past lives. So they just engage in intense meditation and they will realize the self. So Lord says here in verse number 24, they will come to realize Atmanam. Atmanam here is the self within, or the Purusha, the highest eternal self. So where is this eternal self? So you have to be very careful when you read these words. There is a word called Atmanam. There is another word called Atmani. And there is another word called Atmanah. But all mean different things. We have to see what they mean. So the first one, Atmanam, means the self, the consciousness which is within the body. So these are what we call very advanced spiritual seekers. Through the path of dhyana meditation, they will come to realize the self within. How? Through the Atmani. Atmani means the intellect. Through the intellect, they come to understand the what we call the description of what is consciousness. So before you meditate on before you meditate on the self, you must know what is the self. So through the intellect, they come to understand about the self, and then they meditate. And how do they realize the self? He says, Pashyanti, they realize the self in the intellect, Atmanaha, with the help of the inner equipment. So here, Atmanaha means the mind and intellect equipment. Meaning, first you have to purify this inner equipment, then, you purify this inner equipment called the Atmanaha through various sadhanas, by which arises a thirst in knowledge, and then through acquiring the knowledge with your Atmani, the intellect, one sits down and engages in meditation to realize the Atmanam, the self. So the three words mean different things here, one leading to the other. Then what about those who are not so advanced seekers? They cannot sit down in meditation, they don't have the knowledge. They have not yet acquired the knowledge of the self. So the Lord says, Apare, there is another group of people, and they have to start with the very basic first level of sadhana. What is that? Karma yogena, which is the path of action. So their minds are not yet purified to absorb this knowledge. So they have to prepare their minds, and for this they need the path of karma yoga. That means learning how to convert every action as an offering to the Lord, which we have discussed before, is called Ishvara Arpana Bhavana, which means every action is offered to the Lord and every result is accepted as Ishvara Prasadam Bhavana. What about another group of seekers? The Lord says, Anye, there are still some seekers. They don't have to purify their minds to karma yoga, but they have not yet attained the knowledge. So now their mind, they have gone through karma yoga, they have purified their mind. Now their mind is thirsty for seeking the spiritual knowledge. So what do? The Lord says they engage in samkhena. Samkhena here means contemplation or samkhya yoga. which is known collectively as Shravanam and Mananam. So there are two practices here in Samkhya Yoga. One is Shravanam, that is listening to the spiritual knowledge. Second is Mananam, which means they contemplate on this knowledge. So they don't have to engage intensely in Karma Yoga. They do their duties, but because of the thirst in acquiring knowledge, they start going on the path of Jnana Yoga. So they seek a guru, they seek a master, they are very receptive to this knowledge, and they intensify their time in Shravanam and Mananam. So that is another group of what we call seekers. So the next verse now, we come to verse number 25. Some more other sadhanas are given for a different group of seekers. So the word anye in verse 25 again applies. Anye means others. Tu also is a very important word, tu. Tu means however. Anye tu, however, there are others. Others meaning who are different than the devotees who are mentioned in verse 24. So what do they do? Evam. He says, thus, for those devotees whose minds are ajanantaha, they do not know, they do not have enough knowledge, their minds are not subtle enough to engage in the study of the scriptures. So what can they do? He says there is also hope for this kind of seekers. So these kind of seekers, they are strongly attached or they are attracted to upasana, worship. They love to engage their time in worship of the Lord, singing bhajans, going on pilgrimages. They love to do rituals. So they enjoy this part about spirituality or religion. So what do? They have not yet, in them has not arisen the thirst for knowledge. So yet they are devoted to the Lord. They love to perform rituals, prayers, go on pilgrimages. What do? The Lord says, Srutva, they can hear, anyebhya, from others. So it is good for these people to engage in hearing from others. Others meaning who? Meaning the learned ones, learning from great sages and saints, Swamijis. So what do they hear? They hear about all these stories about the Lord, and there are beautiful scriptures called the Puranas, like Shiv Purana, Vishnu Purana, Bhagavatam, which is a Purana for Lord Krishna, and there are many other Puranas like Ganesha Purana. In each of these Puranas, there are many stories about different deities, and these devotees, they love, since they love to do rituals and prayers towards particular deities. So they will be very attracted to hear the stories about Shiva, about Krishna, about Rama from the Ramayana, about Ganesha. So they should just go on listening. And what is the purpose of all this listening? This, what the Lord uses the word here, Shrutva, they hear, anyebhya, from others, what? Upasate. So they take to the path of worship by hearing. By hearing, that is their form of worship to the different deities or devatas. So that's another group of people. And what happens to such kind of devotees? The Lord says, these devotees, when they hear Shruti Parayanaha, Shruti Parayanaha means they listen with devotion, with love in their hearts. So it is not mechanical. They have a lot of love and devotion for these particular deities. So they listen with devotion, right? And even just by listening to the stories of the pastimes about the different deities, okay, it is very important. And the Lord says, Techa api, even these people, even they have no knowledge, but they just listen with devotion. The Lord says in this verse 25, Eva, certainly, ati taranti, they will cross over what? This ocean of birth and death. because they will attain the higher lokas. They will go to the higher lokas because of their punyam and because of their faith and devotion in God. Since they don't worship for material gains, they will attain the higher lokas. Now, once they attain the higher lokas, then there are two different directions which they can take, which was mentioned by Krishna in chapter 6, verses 41, 42, 43, and 44. What are the two directions? One, after spending a number of years in the Swarga Lokas, and because of their punyam, because they have so much of devotion for the Lord, either they take birth in the home of the wealthy and the pious. So note, it is wealth and there is piousness in that family. So wealth means they don't face any financial hurdles, and because the family is also pious, they advance more on their spiritual path. So that is one possibility for these devotees of the Lord. The second option is mentioned in chapter 6. They are born in a family of enlightened yogis. So that means they get access to this spiritual knowledge, jnana yoga. So this intense devotion for the Lord which they had in their previous lives by praying, doing rituals, going on pilgrimages, will give them sufficient punyam that in the next life they are born in a situation, in an environment where all the obstacles for the spiritual progress are removed. And the Lord says they will proceed with more intensity on the spiritual path, and they will go beyond. Chapter 6, verse 44, there is a very important word. He says, these devotees, they will go beyond Shabda Brahma. Shabda Brahma means they will transcend in the next life. When they attain this knowledge, they will transcend the rituals, they will come to spiritual knowledge, and with spiritual knowledge, they will attain moksha. So therefore, the Lord has given us or different types of devotees in verse number 24 and 25, that there is hope for every devotee. It is not that if you don't have the knowledge that you are doomed, if you are just doing rituals and prayers. No. If you do it with intensity and devotion, you will progress. And some have to start with karma yoga, some can start with jnana yoga. So different kind of seekers with different type of mindsets have different options to progress on the spiritual path. So even in the Purusha Suktam, it is mentioned in verse 17, Tam eva vidvan amritam iha bhavati nanya pantaha ayanaya vidyate. Here it is mentioned that a vidvan means the one who knows what tam, him, meaning the one who knows the supreme consciousness. Evam, in this manner, meaning through self-knowledge, through jnana yoga, having come to know the supreme consciousness, and that aham atma asmi, aham brahma asmi, I am that supreme consciousness, bhavati, such a person becomes amritam, immortal, iha, in this very birth. And then the verse in the Purusha Suktam goes on to say, Na anya, I do not know of any other pantaha, meaning path, except jnana yoga, for ayanaya, for moksha, vidyate, to attain. So here what it means is that in order to attain moksha, there is no other path but jnana yoga for one to attain moksha. All other practices, rituals, prayers, meditation, what we call charity we do, seva we do, everything helps to prepare the mind to ultimately come to the path of jnana yoga, and only from jnana yoga can we attain moksha. So now we go on to verse 26 now. So in the last two verses, Krishna has explained the various levels of sadhana for different people, for us to select where we are ready, and we proceed from that. But In verse number 26, here he says that he explains now that what we call the different type of seekers is already explained. So let us see what he says in verse number 26. He says, Yavat kimchit. Yavat kimchit means whatever. Sattvam. Sattvam here means object. So the sattvam here, the object here, is defined in this verse as of two types. Stavara. Stavara means non-moving objects like plants, trees, rocks, etc. And Jangama. Jangama means moving beings like birds, animals, insects, humans. So the Lord says, whatever, whether it is a moving or non-moving object, okay, the Lord says, Tat, understand that samjayate, everything comes into existence. Whatever is moving or non-moving, they all come into existence, come into manifestation. How? Through the combination of Ch13, Ch13 means matter, and Ch13, which is consciousness, some yoga, they come into union. So everything in this creation, our body, the trees, the plants, insects, animals, planets, everything in this creation which is either moving or non-moving is a mixture of two components, matter and consciousness. That is why it is important for us to understand that the whole creation consists of matter plus consciousness. And then the next question we have to ask ourselves, since we are also a mixture of matter and consciousness, then where does our problem begin? Our problem begins with when we identify ourselves as matter, as this body, and we lose or we do not identify ourselves as the consciousness. In reality, we are the consciousness, but because of ignorance, we identify with this body or matter. And that's where our problems start. And this is what is called ahamkara, or identification with the body. And once we identify with the body, we identify with everything that is connected to the body. Relations, possessions, name, honor, etc. And that's where our whole journey from ignorance leads us to problems also. Leads us to doing actions based on ego, and because of that there is punyam and papam, and because of that there is punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. So now that is the delusion that we all live in, and Krishna makes it very clear that everything here in creation, moving or non-moving, is a mixture of matter and consciousness. So the Lord says here, Bharatarasabha, addressing Arjuna as the best of the Bharatas, he says, may you vidhi, may you know, may you understand this very important fact that everything in creation, including yourself, is a mixture of matter and consciousness. And the wise one should therefore question, am I the perishable matter, this body, or am I the imperishable consciousness? Because you cannot be both. You cannot be perishable and imperishable at the same time. Since you are a mixture of both, you should start contemplating on this highest truth. So that brings us now to verse number 27. Now in verse number 27, the Lord speaks about the result of the wise one who goes through the path of Jnana Yoga, engages in constant mananam or inquiry, and comes to the conclusion that I am the eternal consciousness, I am not this temporary body. So from this verse onwards, the Lord will speak about Jnana Phalam, meaning the benefit of attaining this spiritual knowledge. So let us see now what Lord says about this benefit of attaining this spiritual knowledge in verse number 27. He says here, Sarveshu, all the bhuteshu, all the beings which are born and subject to change and are perishable, which consists of both moving and non-moving. All these beings, Sarveshu Bhuteshu, they are all vinashatsu, they are all perishable. So everything that we see in this creation, everything is subject to what we call dissolution. Vinasyatsu means perish. Everything, as we know, we experience it. Everything takes birth, it changes, it decays, and ultimately dies. So the Lord says, Yaha Pashyati, the one who sees. Sees here meaning not with the physical eye, meaning who realizes with his intellectual capabilities. What does he see, or what does he realize with his eye of wisdom? Parameshwaram, the Supreme Lord, Samam is the same. The consciousness here which is described with the word Parameshwaram is Samam, means it exists equally everywhere. It is in the moving objects, it is in the non-moving objects. It is in large things, it is in the tiny ant, it is also in the elephant. So that same one consciousness is equally pervading everywhere. This is what the wise one sees. And Tishtantam, what we call the consciousness is Tishtantam, means it is permanent. This consciousness which exists in the creation changes, but the consciousness remains beyond modification. So the wise one understands the difference of these two. So number one, this consciousness is samam, that means it is equally the same everywhere. Number two, it is permanent. Number three, it is also avinashyantam, it is imperishable. That is the third quality. So the wise one comes to understand that the consciousness within me is imperishable, it is equal, it is in me, and it is also in everything in creation, and it is permanent. And slowly the wise one comes to understand that I am also of that same nature. So this is what the wise person comes to understand. This is the ultimate result of the Jnana Yoga. So the Lord concludes in this verse by saying, such a person, Saha Pashyati, such a person who sees, who realizes this, such a person is truly the what we call the awakened one. He has truly understood the truth about this whole creation. He has got the right vision, the right understanding of life. So just like when we look at a moving fan, we use this example. We see the moving fan. Fan is matter. We cannot see the electricity. Electricity represents consciousness in this example. Fan is matter. Electricity is consciousness. We see the fan moving. We do not see the electricity, but with our knowledge, we are able to discriminate. It is because of the unseen electricity, the fan which is seen is moving. That is Pashyati. That is seeing, appreciating, understanding the unmanifested consciousness which we cannot see, yet it exists in and through all that is manifested in this creation. And with that, we will stop here at verse number 27, and in the next session, we'll come and resume from verse number 28. Hari Om Tat Sat.